Have you ever looked at a city bus and thought, who designed this boring metal box? Hold on to your seats because mid-century public transport was completely unhinged. Today we expose 10 of the most illegally weird, over-engineered, and bizarre classic buses that somehow made it onto public streets. We are talking about a massive American school bus with semi-truck wheels, a six-wheeled Cold War Leviathan, and a beast tethered to high-voltage wires. These are not average commuter vehicles, they are rolling mechanical nightmares. And I guarantee the alien-like monstrosity waiting at number 10 is so catastrophically designed, it literally caught fire and forced drivers to rebel. You must watch until the end to believe it. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let us dive into the madness. Starting off our list at number 1, we have a familiar face hiding a bizarre, high-tech secret, the AEC Routemaster prototype RM1. Before the iconic red double-decker became the ultimate symbol of London, it started as this peculiar, slightly awkward-looking prototype in 1954. Visually, it looks like a standard Routemaster that got stung by a massive bee. It lacks the refined grille of later production models, sporting a flatter, almost surprised-looking front fascia. Compared to heavy buses of its era, it was remarkably compact, yet it cast a giant historical shadow. The real bizarre factor of the RM1 was the cutting-edge engineering hiding underneath its red paint. While passenger buses of the 1950s were universally built like heavy farm tractors with a massive steel ladder frame, the RM1 utilized lightweight aluminum aerospace technology developed during World War II. It featured an integral body design and a completely independent coil spring front suspension, which was entirely unheard of for a commercial transit vehicle. The engineers essentially built a giant 64-seat sports car, making it incredibly nimble on tight city streets. Despite its weird, unpolished looks, the RM1 flawlessly proved the lightweight concept. It was the crucial mechanical stepping stone that led to the legendary fleet of red buses we all know today. Have you ever ridden on a classic double-decker bus while visiting Europe? Let me know down in the comments. The RM1 was a brilliant British icon in the making, but if you think British double-deckers are visually striking, wait until you see the massive humpbacked American highway cruiser coming up next on our list. Cruising into the number 2 spot is the unmistakable GMC Buffalo P-4107. If you were standing at a Greyhound station in the late 1960s, you could not miss this towering machine. It looked exactly like its nickname, a massive rolling mechanical buffalo. The bus featured a bizarre, bi-level stepped roofline where the rear passenger section abruptly rose much higher than the driver's cabin. With its gleaming, fluted aluminum siding and heavily tinted, angled windows, it looked less like public transport and more like a silver spaceship designed for the American highway. The engineering behind this humpback design was purely strategic. GMC wanted to offer passengers a panoramic elevated view of the landscape while solving a massive mechanical packaging problem. By raising the rear deck, engineers created cavernous baggage compartments underneath. Tucked away in the very back was a screaming Detroit diesel 8V71 V8 engine. This massive two-stroke powerhouse produced a distinct howling exhaust note. The stepped roof was a brilliant solution that maximized cargo space and easily accommodated that heavy-duty, loud engine block weighing thousands of pounds. Riding in the upper deck of a Buffalo was the ultimate American road trip experience, offering commanding views that modern flat-roof buses just cannot match. However, that weird roofline made it an absolute nightmare for drivers navigating low bridges or pulling into tight maintenance garages. Have you ever taken a long-distance bus across the country? It was an American highway legend. But while America was building luxury highway cruisers, East Germany was building a blunt-nosed, slow-moving beast. Let us cross the Iron Curtain to see our next heavy-duty machine. At number 3, we meet the rugged, unapologetic IFA H6B. Emerging from the factories of East Germany in the 1950s, this bus looks less like a passenger vehicle and more like a heavy-duty military truck that accidentally got fitted with windows. It featured a massive protruding front snout housing the engine, a stark contrast to the flat-faced transit buses becoming popular in the West. Weighing close to 20,000 pounds empty, the H6B was painted in drab utilitarian colors and rolled on massive truck wheels. It defined Soviet-era industrial brutalism. The bizarre aspect of the IFA was its sheer, uncompromising engineering. It shared its heavy steel chassis and its six-cylinder diesel engine directly with heavy freight trucks. Because it was so incredibly heavy and the engine only pushed out around 120 horsepower, it was painfully slow, often struggling to reach 45 miles per hour. But here is the crazy part. Public transport demands were so high that this slow bus was frequently forced to tow a massive, fully loaded passenger trailer behind it through the freezing streets of East Berlin. The H6B was never about passenger comfort. It was about sheer survival and getting the working class to their factories, no matter the road conditions. It was incredibly loud, constantly vibrating, and practically indestructible. Would you have the patience to ride in a bus towing another bus at just 30 miles per hour? Drop a yes or no in the comments right now. The IFA was a roaring diesel beast, but our next vehicle is completely, eerily silent, yet absolutely massive in size. Gliding into number 4 is the Marman Harrington trolleybus. If you looked at it from the waist down, it seemed like a standard 40-foot-long American transit bus with shiny chrome bumpers and rounded Art Deco styling. But look up, and the bizarre nature of this machine is instantly revealed. Sprouting from its roof were two giant spring-loaded electrical poles reaching up like insect antennas, scraping against a complex web of overhead copper wires. It was a massive, heavy-duty creature tethered permanently to the city's electrical power grid, operating with zero gasoline. Marman Harrington engineered these trolleybuses to be the ultimate urban workhorses. The bizarre part of their engineering is that they possessed zero internal combustion. They were entirely electric, decades before modern EVs existed. A massive electric traction motor sat under the floor, providing instant massive torque. This meant that despite weighing over 18,000 pounds, it could accelerate from a dead stop with shocking, almost violent speed. It could easily outpace regular passenger cars off the line, making absolutely no engine noise, just the eerie hum of electricity and popping wires. Riding one was a surreal urban experience, incredible acceleration completely devoid of engine vibration. However, if the driver swerved too hard to avoid a car, those roof poles would violently snap off the wires. This left the massive bus completely dead in the middle of traffic until the driver got out to manually reconnect them. It was a silent, tethered giant. But if you think a bus tied to electric wires is weird, wait until you see the monstrous six-wheeled machine coming up next from Eastern Europe. Rolling in at number 5 is the mighty Tatra T400, and this thing is an absolute unit. At first glance, you might think your eyes are deceiving you. Why does a city transit bus need 3 axles? The T400 is a mammoth Czechoslovakian trolley bus that looks like a standard bus stretched on a medieval torture rack. With 1 axle in the front and a tandem pair of axles in the rear giving it 6 massive wheels, it looked more like a heavy-duty logging truck than a public commuter vehicle. The engineering reason for this bizarre 3-axle layout was a mix of immense weight and Tatra's world-famous design philosophy. To support the incredibly heavy electrical equipment and hundreds of tightly packed commuters, 2 axles simply were not enough. Tatra engineers adapted their famous heavy-duty military truck chassis. They utilized their legendary central tubular backbone chassis design, complete with independently swinging half-axles. The rear double axles distributed the tremendous weight, allowing this gigantic beast to glide smoothly over rough, war-torn cobblestone streets without snapping its rigid frame in half. It was a total over-engineering marvel that proved practically indestructible. T400s remained in heavy service for decades, carrying loads that would crush normal buses. It was a true testament to Cold War-era durability and Tatra's mechanical genius. Have you ever seen a city bus with 6 wheels driving around your hometown? I bet you have not. The Tatra was heavy, brutal, and complex. But right across the border in West Germany, an engineer was about to do the exact opposite and change the world forever. Let us look at number 6. At number 6, we have the elegant but secretly revolutionary Kässbohrer Setra S10. Introduced in 1951 from the outside, it did not look bizarre in a grotesque way. In fact, it looked beautifully futuristic. It featured a sleek, rounded aerodynamic body with panoramic curved windows that made it look like a silver bullet gliding down the Autobahn at 60 miles per hour. Compared to the boxy, heavy truck-like buses of the era, the S10 looked like a luxury jetliner that had forgotten its wings on the tarmac. But the bizarre, mind-blowing part of the Setra S10 was completely invisible to the naked eye. It had no chassis. The name Setra actually translates from German to self-supporting. At a time when every single bus was essentially a massive steel ladder frame with a metal box bolted on top, Otto Kässbohrer engineered the world's first true unibody bus. The body shell itself was the frame, constructed from a complex, lightweight, three-dimensional tubular steel grid. Furthermore, they shoved the engine completely into the rear, isolating passengers from noise. This bizarre, radical departure from traditional heavy-duty engineering meant the S10 was incredibly light, fast, and offered a remarkably smooth, passenger car-like ride. It revolutionized the entire global bus industry. Almost every single modern passenger coach running on highways today uses the exact unibody principles pioneered by the weirdly hollow S10. It was a sleek, modern marvel, but while Germany was building advanced lightweight unibodies, America was building a sheer brute force steel box. Get ready for the rolling bank vault at number 7. Lumbering into the number 7 spot is the Mack C49. If a solid steel brick could drive, it would look exactly like this. Built in the late 1950s for major American cities, the C49 was the absolute epitome of function over form. It was a massive, unapologetically flat-faced rectangular box on wheels. It featured tiny, high-mounted windows and a solid, imposing front grille, adorned with the famous Mack Bulldog hood ornament. Standing next to it, weighing thousands of pounds, the bus felt less like a vehicle and more like a rolling fortress. The engineering of the Mack C49 was all about pure, brute durability. The 49 in its name stood for its massive passenger seating capacity, making it one of the largest transit buses of its time. To move this heavy, crowded steel fortress, Mack equipped it with their legendary Thermodyne diesel engine. It was not fast, it was not quiet, but it produced an earth-shaking amount of torque. The suspension was incredibly stiff, designed specifically to handle extreme passenger crush loads without sagging, meaning every pothole sent a shockwave up your spine. Riding the C49 was a loud, bone-rattling experience, but these machines were virtually unkillable. They ran for millions of miles in harsh, unforgiving environments like New York City, brushing off minor accidents like they were nothing. It was a symbol of unstoppable American industrial might. Speaking of industrial survival, our next bus was built during a time when materials were so scarce, the factories could not even afford to bend the metal. Get ready for the sharp edges of number 8. Entering the list at number 8 is the stark and fascinating Guy Arab utility bus. Imagine a classic, charming British double-decker bus, but designed entirely by someone using only a straight edge and a ruler. Built during the height of World War II, this bus is visually shocking because of its complete lack of elegance. It has zero aerodynamic curves. The roof is completely flat, the sides are purely vertical, and the windows are strictly rectangular. It looks like a giant metal shoebox hastily slapped together in a shed. This bizarre, aggressively boxy appearance was a direct result of wartime engineering restrictions. It was strictly mandated by the government as a utility design. Because steel, aluminum, and skilled metal workers were desperately needed to build fighter planes, bus manufacturers were legally forbidden from using complex curves that required panel beating. The body was constructed from simple flat panels of whatever cheap materials were available, heavily incorporating wood. Inside, passengers sat on bare, unupholstered wooden slats just to save fabric and leather for the military forces. It was freezing cold in the winter, brutally uncomfortable, and rattled loud enough to wake the dead. Yet these bizarre, hastily built war machines kept the workforce moving through the darkest days of the Blitz. They are a true testament to survival engineering under extreme pressure. But if you think a wooden seated box is crazy, wait until you see the monstrous American school bus that requires 3 axles and 40 feet of steel just to carry kids to class. Crashing into the number 9 spot is the legendary Crown Supercoach Tandem. If you grew up in the US, you know the classic yellow school bus. But the Crown Supercoach looks like a school bus on heavy steroids. Built in California, it is an absolute leviathan. Measuring a massive 40 feet long, its most bizarre visual feature is the tandem rear axles. 4 huge wheels grouped together at the back, just like a heavy-duty semi-truck. With its iconic rounded Art Deco front end, it looked like a runaway train driving down the highway. The engineering behind this beast was focused on extreme capacity and unparalleled safety. Built primarily for West Coast schools, the tandem axles were not just for show. They were absolutely necessary to safely support the massive weight of up to 91 screaming passengers. Even crazier, the engine was not in the front, nor was it in the back. Crown utilized a mid-engine layout, completely hiding a massive horizontal Cummins diesel engine under the floor right in the middle of the bus, giving it a surprisingly low center of gravity. These buses were built to an insanely high standard, with frames so thick and durable they regularly outlived their original drivers. It is not uncommon to see them staying in daily service for 30 or 40 years. Have you ever ridden in a school bus this massive? Let us know in the comments. The Crown was an engineering triumph. But now it is time for the grand finale, the vehicle you have been waiting for. The bus that was so strangely engineered it became an absolute nightmare. Finally, at number 10, we present the weirdest, most bizarre classic bus ever conceived, the Guy Wulfrunian. Introduced in 1959, just looking at this British double-decker makes your brain hurt. It possesses a strangely bulging front end, an asymmetrical massive grille, and a front entrance door that sits awkwardly ahead of the front wheels. The driver does not sit behind the engine nor in front of it. The driver sits awkwardly right next to a massive protruding engine housing. It looks like an alien spaceship failing to disguise itself. The engineering of the Wulfrunian is where things get truly chaotic. Guy Motors tried to pack every experimental technology into one single vehicle. They wanted a front-engine layout, but also a low-step entrance. To achieve this, they shoved the heavy Gardner 6LX diesel engine completely to the right side, completely throwing off the entire weight distribution. Then they added a wildly complex independent front suspension, full air suspension on all wheels, and heavy disc brakes, technologies that were incredibly rare and untested on commercial heavy vehicles. The result was a catastrophic, expensive failure. The extreme complexity meant it was constantly breaking down on the streets. The bizarre weight distribution made it handle terribly, and the early disc brakes could not handle the immense friction heat, constantly fading or straight up catching fire. Drivers hated it, mechanics despised it, and it was quickly pulled from service. Weighing heavily on the company's finances, the Guy Wulfrunian stands today as the ultimate historical example of bizarre, overambitious engineering gone horribly, horribly wrong. And there you have it, folks. From the featherweight Routemaster prototype and the towering GMC Buffalo, to the massive 6-wheeled Tatra and the absolute engineering disaster that was the Guy Wulfrunian. These 10 bizarre classic buses prove that the history of transportation is filled with weird, wild, and wonderful experiments. Which of these strange machines was your absolute favorite? Would you dare to drive the Wulfrunian? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that subscribe button for more deep dives into automotive history, and we will see you in the next video.